Well, good morning, everyone. This is Stuart Ryan from the Ryan Report. It's Sunday afternoon, and today's report is on the cause and effect syndrome of American fascism. The cause and effect theory is the principle that one event or a situation or an action, the cause, is directly responsible for creating another event or situation or reaction, the effect. This relationship is fundamental to reasoning and understanding the world around us, where a cause precedes its effect and is a necessary component for it to occur at all. The theory is generally applied across variable fields, from scientific laws to engineering and daily reasoning, with applications including understanding system dynamics through feedback loops and explaining phenomena, including political and social interactions. That's an abstract. This syndrome significantly applies to political and social circumstantial causes, especially to the circumstances of a broad move and transition away from a nation's typical historical rules of law, democratic norms and principles, to an oppressive leadership, however derived, that has an effect, inviting an opposition to the loss or threat of loss of freedoms that is in fact a direct effect of the former. Confused? So am I. But political cause and effect examples simply include historical events like the American Revolution, which led to the establishment of a new democratic republic. Other examples include the Great Depression, causing a major shift in American voting patterns from the Republican to the Democratic Party. And there is always the Reichstag fire, probably set by Hitler's men, creating the Enabling Act of 1933 in Nazi Germany, which suspended civil liberties. The problem becomes magnified with each cause, such as socially disagreeable and dangerous policy shifts or diverse consolidation of authoritarian power, that in turn creates a further effect in a pattern of cyclical escalation that eventually, in the sphere of social or societal organization and political rule, ultimately leads to or can lead to extreme violence in what has become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Cause and effect theory in the political arena necessarily favors the rich, the politically powerful, and the enabled against the weak, the disenfranchised, and the disorganized, who, through or though affected, do lack the means to react and resist in an effective way. So, it does not, unfortunately, follow what would have been convenient, Newton's third law of action and equal reaction. Here is the best example in the moment, or at least the most convenient one, playing out even as I write on the subject. I have long regarded our interest, our focus in obtaining the Epstein files as a meaningless and deflectional sidebar to the overall societal and political exigent problems we face in reacting to a fascist takeover in America. But it provides us now with a clear and understandable warning of a cause and effect syndrome that dominates our ability to solve the problem of displacement of American constitutional order and freedoms. Here is how it works in the favor of those who are in control. We all cry out for a public disclosure of the Epstein files, and the Trump regime, of course, resists through its control of the FBI and Department of Justice, while somehow enough congressional pressure and the threat of a vote in the House is brought to bear so that a psychotic and malevolent leader, Trump, might be embarrassed or threatened by this forthcoming disclosure. So what does he do? He then seeks another means to forestall their release of the documentation into the public forum.
Donald Trump attempts one last-ditch effort to bury the Epstein files, and I've got 4 interviews: Bernie Sanders, Jamie Raskin, Ro Khanna, and Pod Save America's John Lovett. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. So the walls are very clearly closing in on Trump. For the first time that I can remember, there are full-blown public defections. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of his closest allies, has bailed on him. She, along with 3 other Republicans, Mace, Boebert, and Massey, all voted for the discharge petition to compel a House vote on the Epstein files release. Now that it's happening, a raft of Republicans have begun announcing that they, too, are going to vote for it. So far, some of the names include Eli Crane, Warren Davidson, Kevin Kiley, that's just to name a few. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey have said that they expect anywhere from 30 to 50 other Republicans to ultimately vote for its release, recognizing the inevitability of its passage and therefore not wanting to be the person who offers up a symbolic vote protecting pedophiles. Like, if you can't actually help Trump suppress the files, then you might as well not be on record for a doomed vote helping pedophiles. Now, Trump, for his part, has tried everything. He has slow-walked the files that are being released in the Oversight Committee, largely relying on the files that are already public. With the help of Mike Johnson, he kept the government closed for months, refusing to swear in Adelita Grijalva so that the discharge petition wouldn't ripen. Once she was sworn in, Trump summoned Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room, where, conspicuously, you can't record anything, so that he could pressure her to remove her name from the petition, which she didn't. Now that the petition's been passed, he is publicly attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene, having unendorsed her, and is lending support to whoever wants to challenge her in a primary, and that's as a way of sending a message to any other Republicans who dare defect against Trump. All of which still hasn't stopped Greene, by the way. But there's one more tool in his toolbox to be able to perpetuate this cover-up. Now, a few days ago, Donald Trump took to Truth Social and wrote, "Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures, I will be asking Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, JP Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him." To which Bondi replied, "Thank you, Mr. President. SDNY U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton is one of the most capable of trusted prosecutors in the country, and I've asked him to take on the lead. As with all matters, the department will pursue this with urgency and integrity to deliver answers to the American people." Now, that might seem inconsequential. Trump blames shit on Democrats every day. He issues his little edicts to Pam Bondi every day. She obediently acquiesces every day. But there is a world where, if the bill to pass the Epstein files passes the House and the Senate by a big enough margin to overcome the inevitable presidential veto, that Donald Trump's last-ditch effort here might be to say, hey, look, we definitely, totally would love to release the files in accordance with that legislation, But you know, the DOJ can't release any information about an ongoing investigation.
So, just when it seems there will be a public disclosure of the files, the next operation in the cycle of the cause and effect syndrome is to have Trump, through Pam Bondi, disingenuously reopen the Epstein investigation, thereby once more sealing the files, again using a bogus investigation as the means to block public scrutiny. The effect might be to challenge the closure of the files in a court of law, but the legal barriers will, I believe, prove too solid to provide relief and justice. All of the focus on the Epstein files as an effect is consequentially muted or nullified. Now, a second example would be the Trump regime's causal action of invoking an act unlawfully to enable him to deploy military into our streets, in which he might very well lose at the Supreme Court, thanks to an extremely clever amicus brief, our effect being chaos, racial profiling, unlawful detention, tear gas, and rubber bullets, and our response is a court case. And so it goes on in a perpetual war between a rogue imperial despotic presidency causing chaos and repression, taking actions and illegally invoking laws to disembowel democracy, and an unguarded public virtually incapable of affecting a little or really no substantial change in their collective circumstances. Society in every state is a blessing. That's what Thomas Paine said and believed. But he went on to say, while society is in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil, and in its worst state, an intolerable one. For Thomas Paine, a real patriot, viewed government as a necessary evil created to restrain vice and maintain order, but he argued it should be limited and accountable to the people. He strongly opposed monarchy and hereditary rule, advocating instead for a republic where power comes from the consent of the governed and all individuals are equal. Paine believed government's primary purpose is to serve the people and protect their rights, not destroy them, and that it should be structured with frequent elections to ensure responsiveness. That's enough for today. Thank you for watching and listening, and I trust some of you might really subscribe to my little network. Thank you.